So for this module, we're going to talk about polynomials, and so I wanted to start off just with a video about polynomial vocabulary. Now, the word polynomial means many terms, so we're just talking about expressions with many different terms, and each term is separated by a plus or a minus sign. So if you're looking in this example right here, this 2x cubed is a term, this 4x to the fifth is a term, this 3x is a term, and this negative 4 is a term. And so each of these terms altogether, added or subtracted together, make up the polynomial. Coefficients is a word we'll hear quite a bit, and that is simply the number attached to a variable. So in our case, this 2 is a coefficient, this 4 is a coefficient, and this 3 is a coefficient. And then we generally think of the term that has no variable attached to it as the constant term. So our negative 4 would be considered the constant term. And another thing that we talk about when we're talking about polynomials is writing polynomials in standard form. So if you're looking at the same example we looked at on the previous slide, this 2x cubed plus 4x to the fifth plus 3x minus 4, we want to make sure we write that in standard form. That's how we write all of our answers. Just kind of gives us some consistency, and it'll help out in future math classes, I promise. So in standard form, you go from the highest degree to the lowest degree. So in our case, this x to the fifth is the highest, so that 5 right there is what I'm looking at. So that's what I'm going to write first. Then the 3 is the next highest, so that's next. And then this 3x is the next highest, and then the constant always goes at the end. So if we've done this properly and actually put it in standard form, then it makes a lot of things a lot easier in the end, I promise. One of the things it makes easier is identifying the degree of the polynomial. Now a degree is just the exponent that we're looking at, so in this case it's a degree 5. We would say that the polynomial that we're looking at is degree 5. And then the leading coefficient is the number attached to the highest powered variable. So in our case, it's a 4. The leading coefficient would be 4. Our degree would be 5. All right, last thing I want to talk about on this slide is just how to name a polynomial. There are two different ways to name a polynomial. One of the common ways that we name the polynomial is by the number of terms. So if we have just one term, it's called a monomial. 2 terms, a binomial, 3 terms is a trinomial. And anything 4 terms or greater, a lot of times we just say polynomial with 4 terms, just to kind of give us a little bit of consistency. We will be spending a lot of time in just secondary 2 in general and in a lot of classes dealing with the binomials, and then we'll also spend some time looking at trinomials. So make sure you're familiar with those 2 words. I'll be using those a lot. One of the other ways to name a polynomial is by the degree of it. So if it has no x's associated with it at all, we're talking about something like y equals a number. So I don't know, y equals 3. Most of the time we don't consider constants really a polynomial, but that is what it would be called. Another one is a linear polynomial, and you've seen a lot of these. It's something to do with like y equals x. So you should have spent a lot of time in secondary 1 looking at those. Another one is a quadratic, and we will spend a lot of time in secondary 2 on quadratics. That's something like y equals x squared. Quadratics are very, very common things to play with, and we'll spend a good chunk of this year talking about those. Another one is a cubic, so y equals x to the third. And then anything bigger than that, like y equals x to the fourth or so on, we just say a 4th degree polynomial or 5th degree polynomial or so on and so forth. Just to kind of wrap up this video, make sure that you study these vocabulary words. Make sure you've taken notes on them. I'll be using them a lot, and I want you to be very familiar with them and make sure that you know what I'm talking about when I use them. We'll be using them a lot throughout this whole entire school year.